Welcome YouTube, we got West Coast and St Kilda today. Okay then, it is St Kilda as player 1, West Coast as player 2. Things have been working out actually coin toss wise when I do it. I do it with like a little app thing in here. Well, it's just like website stuff, but app in here. And just let it do a thing. It's been working out where the team you would expect to win, usually, actually has been getting that player 1. It's been happening quite a bit, so we'll see how the game goes. I do know coming in, I think actually West Coast might be ahead of St Kilda on the ladder, actually coming into this game. So you can't judge it based on how real life is going around, you know. But we got our game started here. It could just be the one AFL game today that is sort of what we're looking at. Just because I found myself playing Yakuza over the past few days, so and I have like a time limit to finish that by. So yay. So that's why I can see for the next little bit playing just potentially the one game, but I do want to be able to get back into playing 2 AFLs a day. We do have a time limit for the AFL season as well, so that's what we're looking to do. Hopefully we can just have good times with the game while trying to talk about other things that come up. Oh, get the kicks over here.
That's not clever at all.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So I did see, before coming into there was a topic brought up by Kat. I did see that was, you asking, do I think trans people should play in female sports? So playing a sports game, it actually kind of works a bit, you know. Oh, playing it here, and you're saying that it was not fair if a man can join a woman's sport, and naturally a man is going to be a lot stronger than a woman. Should there be males in women's sports? Should there be females in men's sports? Get rid of this, please. It's an interesting question. Because I think it's a lot. Because it like kind of depends on like how do you define. Because they don't define it in saying, oh, this is a female sport, this is a male sport. Really, I don't think so. Because when we look at them, we're like, oh, this is the man's thing, this is the women's thing, and then the reason that trans people get included. And look, I think everyone is able to sort of agree that we only give a crap about trans women, not trans men joining men's sports. Because we're all looking at it and being like, yeah, they ain't winning. We're all looking at like, dude, they ain't winning. Like, that's never really where the conversation goes. Even though logically that's where it would have to go as well. Get the kicks in there. There we go.
This is what it gets paid to do, kick these goals.
But no, it's like, it's kind of starting with how like we're defining women and men to begin with, and the reason that it's been happening is that the definition has changed, right? Like that's why it's been happening. And yes, we do see that in them, wherever it's like you're looking at swimming, because it's like what's their name, like Leah Thomas, right? Where we're seeing okay, go over this, where you're seeing like trans women just dominating and just breaking like records all over the place, really. So over here, and then there's and then there's the question of like, do you think should it be allowed? Should trans people be in the sports? Well, if I'll put it this way, should there be a sport where it's like male and female, no matter who you are? Should that be allowed? And it's like, well, if someone wants to put that together, and then there are people who are willing to compete in that, then yes. Like if people want to compete against whoever they're competing against, and I know that the question is specific of saying like this is for women only, I'm aware of that, but there's more into it of just like, if you put together and just said, hey, let's just put a full competition together, anyone can enter regardless if they're man or woman, whatever, right? Do I think that should be able to be done? Well, if there are people, like I said, there are people willing to put it together, there are people willing to compete, then it can happen, you know? Like, the thing I think about is like, because I've watched Survivor, right? So they'll have men and women compete against each other in physical stuff. Like, yes, that tends to be just like when it's like individual things, right? But like that happens. And that would happen in other places as well.
He's made a hot start to this match.
So like men and women competing against each other, males and females competing against each other, like it's already like a thing that had been happening. So it being based on that.
The two big men do battle.
Saying, Lenny, what are you talking about? That you asked about something and I start talking about something else. I'm talking within it. You said, do I think trans people should play in female sports? And I'm going through all like the different parts in it.
A chance to clear now.
To come around.
Towards full forward. King trying to
rather than okay, over here.
Higgins lurking menacingly. Steele running into
like I was using Survivor as an example of saying, look, there are men and women, males and females who actually compete against each other in a physical environment. Yes, it's not going to be all the time. I'm just saying that there are actually examples of that, and I'm just using Survivor as that example because that's what I know.
And he's off target.
You're just asking about women's UFC? Okay, within that, women's swimming and that stuff. Okay, within those things, if there are people who are willing to put an event together that allows people to compete against each other who are male and female, right? And there are people who are willing to do the swimming, why not? If there are people who are willing to put that together, and there are people who are willing to compete, there are people who are willing to pay money to see it,
who can get the clearance?
You know? It's like, I think the thing that you would be having a problem with in this is what the people would generally be having a problem with it is that they're classifying themselves as women, right? And you've been like, oh, those people who were born as male, they aren't women, so they shouldn't be in it. And they shouldn't be calling themselves women. Right? That's like what the problem would be, right?
Now it's someone else's problem. Can he make them pay for that errant hand pass?
You're saying if it's just for women, why can a man join? Because they say they're a woman. Because the people, because what they want isn't, they're not asking for females. They're asking for women. So it's like they're saying, in order to join this women's sport, you must classify as a woman. And then whatever your definition of that woman is, if the people who are running it, if you come over and you say, I'm a woman, and they just say, okay, you're a woman, then you get joined in. Like, yes, I understand that the reason that we have problems with this is because there are people who are born male, right? Who then say they're women based on how they define what a woman is.
That's an impressive mark. Incisive handball. Billings lays it off.
Saying I can say I'm doctor doesn't mean I can get the job.
Crouch. Out of the congestion.
You get the job based on if the people hiring feel like you fit the qualifications they want you to.
Ryan, can he be the fire starter? Darling.
Like that's how all job application stuff happens. You come in and you present yourself. You are selling yourself, however you're doing it. And then if the people who you are selling yourself to feel like you fit what they are looking for, you get it.
Showing some good signs early. Wilkie, dangerous to leave on his own. Kicks laterally. Marshall.
Get this over here.
Got them on the overlap. Alarm bells are ringing.
After kicks. There you go.
It's hard to defend ball movement like this.
Like I do feel like I understand like where you would be coming from with the trans women in sports, where it's like these people are men. They were born as boys, and then they grow up. And it doesn't matter if they like change the way that they dress and the way that they act. If they act in like a way that's very like comes from that majority of women, you'd be like, oh, they were born this way, so that's how they are, so that's how they should be competing, only that way. And it's like, well, why should anyone even have sports to begin with? Like, why do we have sports? Because people are like, hey, we should have that. And it's like, why was oh, come on, they're there.
He ran into a brick wall. Kelly, Shuey.
Let's get that going.
Ryan, he's going.
Yes.
And why wouldn't he with a finish like that?
A real opportunist goal there. He doesn't need a lot of the footy to make an impact.
They've got one.
Saying so LeBron James can say he's a woman just for the hell of it and should be able to join the WNBA.
He's got support. Gresham.
If the WNBA wants, whole purpose of the WNBA is to allow women, is having a league that is only for women, and in order to be there and say that you're a woman and therefore be able to be part of it, it depends on what the WNBA says a woman is in their mind. That they would say, okay, you fit the criteria of what we consider to be a woman. So if LeBron James goes over and says he's a woman, right, and then that was good enough according to the WNBA, then LeBron James would be allowed in the WNBA. Right? Okay, here we go.
They're playing with purpose and poise. Higgins read it well and claims the mark. Patton drops into the hole and marks.
Britton Buddy, you'd think.
Let's get this goal here.
He's a good
there you go.
Shot, and he's buried that one.
They've wasted no time applying some scoreboard pressure.
Like, it's not going to be based on a physical advantage, because there's always going to be a physical advantage. No matter like who you are, whether it's men on men, women versus women. Like in basketball, 7-footers compete against 6-footers. You know, that's a clear difference in terms of the way that the people's bodies are. So it's not like a physical advantage that people necessarily have a problem with. Hey, how's it fair to women? The way that it would be fair is that within the WNBA, if they're saying women can join in, and then they say LeBron James, we consider LeBron to be a woman, then it would be women versus women. Like, there's always going to be some sort of physical advantage in a physical competition for the way that people are, right? Like, people, not everyone's body is developed the same way.
With half a chance, he's suddenly a popular man.
So it's not based on the physical advantage, because there's always a physical advantage for people.
Marshall with the tap. Cully will take some stopping. It's no place for the faint-hearted.
Like, yes, that physical advantage can be a lot larger by someone who was born as a male versus someone born as a female.
Time to check in with Gary.
But the fact that there is an advantage isn't really the problem itself. It's that when you're looking at something and saying, oh, this should be for women, saying, no, it will be a man that says he's woman against biological women. If there's an organization like the WNBA that says they want people who identify as women, it's up to the people who are trying to get into the WNBA to showcase themselves as someone who fits within the criteria that the WNBA would be after.
He's so good in close. Gaff, with some time, can set them up. Well played.
Get rid of this one. Come on.
Allen. The Eagles, not
there you go.
So far. Ryan marks inside.
It's like saying, why is it fair that the WNBA get like a league at all if they're like apparently not they're not that good, you know? You're saying that's the whole reason there are two different things to begin with? Like, right, the whole idea that there was like a WNBA versus an NBA, was for the WNBA, it was to allow women to be able to play because they weren't, because from a physical standpoint, none of them, if you put the NBA, none of them were getting in. Yes. So then it's like, oh, well, why is it fair that women even get a league to begin with if they're not good enough to have a league? Why is it fair that women just get one, right? Because it's like the idea is like if men and women are like treated equally, then you wouldn't actually make a league that is women only. You would leave it open to like everyone, right? Just in like any other environment. Like, why do we put this whole difference for physical business? You're saying they can compete against them, so they can compete against themselves. Like, okay, so why not just have a business that is just based on the whole, what is it? It's a tax office, women only, a women-only tax office. You know, and it's like, oh well, we need the sport one because the physical difference, it's just too large. It's like, so what? It's like there are plenty of men who are never going to be in the NBA because they're just not good enough. So should we have like a under 5'6" under 5'6" only men league because they're just not good enough to make it to the other one? Like, you could start it if you wanted to.
The kick is wide and out of bounds on the full.
He'd like to have that one back.
You're saying there is. We call them the kids competition.
What are your thoughts, Gary?
The Saints.
It's like I'm using just like examples that aren't even like. Go over here. What do we got? Oh, we're in the second quarter here.
Showing his skills. Jones.
Come on.
That's a bruising tackle. Steer.
There you go.
The defense is disorganised. The Eagles have been caught now.
The whole reason that
He hasn't got his name on the goal scorers list.
Mr. Higgins.
Here's a good chance.
The whole reason WNBA was started, or any other women's sports,
The Saints are getting reward for their dominance, though you could argue they should be even further in front.
the whole reason that the women's sports was started, so then we could be like, women get to have a professional thing, even though we were looking at it and being like, oh, they're not as good, right? So it's, okay, there you go. So it's like pumping money into a league that was purposely set up for people, regardless of whatever they were, that wouldn't be the top of the top. And we just said, okay, as long as they fit within the criteria that we want. Now, yes, in the past, those criteria were people who were born female and then just grew up that way, right? Like, that's what it was. And the reason why that within other sports has been changing is because people's view of what it means to be a woman has changed. But then they still keep the leagues the same, which is must classify as a woman.
So important to get the reward for effort. On that occasion,
And there are places that don't allow male-born women to compete because they consider it should be female only. Like, this is the thing. If you like don't want trans women in sports, there's a very simple, I feel like there's a simple thing, which is just say, which is literally just call it female competition, and then be like, okay, you have to classify yourself as female, which is the way that you were born.
Ryan, he stopped in his tracks. Kelly doing the grunt work.
You're saying then in that case a 7-footer should be able to join a Magento. I know I said it however low. Like a small person's league because he identifies that way. Look, if there's a league that has small people, right? That has people who are like what, the dwarfs and stuff, whatever. And they have a league, and they'd be like, this is the classification to be in it, right? And then they open up that open up the criterias that happen to allow a 7-footer in. Then it's, and if the 7-footer tries to get in, it's then up to the place it's then up to the people who have that league to say, you either fit within our criteria or you don't. If for whatever reason they say, okay, we're actually changing the idea of what it means, of what it means to be, what it means to be a midget, right? If they're changing the idea of what that means in their mind, of how they're defining it, then that could, and it happens to allow a 7-footer in, then it allows a 7-footer in, and everyone who's within that league would still be You're saying no way fair at all? How is it fair that, like, so what? You know? Like, it doesn't mean that the 7-footer knows how to do anything within it. But if the whole classification is, we want people, for a man to be beating a woman in the UFC, you're saying it's no way fair at all for a man to be beating a woman in the UFC. If the UFC says, hey, we want to have if they want intergender fighting, right? Like, is it fair if the UFC wanted this? This isn't this isn't biological women versus trans women. Man and woman, if they're just like, yeah, we want a man versus women league, and everyone who's in it is a consenting person within it, well, then they set it up, everyone consented within it, you can have a pretty good idea of how things are going to go.
Cully puts his teammate under the pump. It's a hot footy. Shuey, he's besieged. Higgins.
And if there are people who, and the way that those types of fights would survive or not survive would be based on, most likely, would be based on whether or not the UFC would want to keep doing it. And the way the UFC would or wouldn't would probably be based on money. If people wanted to keep seeing it, wanted to keep watching it. If they didn't want to keep watching it, they wouldn't go watch it, and UFC would probably be like, wow, no one's watching this one? Maybe we need to get rid of it. Or they would keep it going because they like it.
It's all gone to script for them so far.
But then when it comes to, like, the trans part of it,
Billings.
Okay, got rid of this.
Caught out on the turnover. I think he called for that.
If the UFC wanted to say, okay, we want women only in this, and the way that we define the women is if you say you're a woman, well then everyone who says they're a woman gets in there, right?
Away he goes.
And it still falls within what the UFC there would want, because they would be like, this is how we as the UFC define a woman. As long as you fit within that, you get to compete in it.
Owens wanting to get on with the job. The Eagles are chasing tail. He's plucked it and should have a shot.
He's not on the board yet. That should change here.
Saying women should be playing against women, men should be playing against men. Well, the thing is that the organizations who are doing it are basically saying we consider all the people who are competing in this to be women. Now you can disagree with that. I can disagree with that. There can be people, absolutely, there can be people that disagree with that.
He's run into trouble. That's a bit of a waste.
And then if you were
clever handball, Ryan.
Okay, come on here.
And he's done for holding the ball.
If you're a man that's trans into a man, could be playing in a men's league. You might need to like rephrase that.
They're breaking down across half forward. Good kick. Kelly. That's poor play. Sweeping.
Saying man trans into a woman. So like your idea is like if someone is a man and they go into a trans woman, you were saying, oh, they should compete in the man's league. It's like, okay, well, if you are holding an organization and a sports event, and you happen to see something like that happen and be like, oh my god, you used to be man, I'm not going to let you in because you don't consider that person to be a woman. Okay, that's up to you. But the reason it happens is because the people who are running it consider that person to be a woman. And say that the people that they want competing in it are people they consider women.
That was almost handed to him. We've got a whistle, umpire's ball. Marshall punches it out of the ruck.
That's going to be this way.
Billings, good use of hands. Wood, Patton. Blasts away. They've got it done.
There you go.
That's great play.
Well, there's one side
now, if the people who are competing within it are like female born, right? So the idea would be like the cis women, right? That's what the idea would be. If they have a problem with a trans woman being in, they cannot compete, or they can compete against a trans woman. Like that's up to them at that point. And you will see people who decide that they don't want to compete.
The scoreboard here. Patton showing why he's such a good defender.
Saying what's the point of having all these women going up a man that calls himself a woman? If that's the case, they should be able to join the NBA.
Marshall gets to the front spot.
You mean women should be able to join the NBA? I actually don't know if the NBA is gender segregated, actually. Like, just actually... There you go. That's another goal. I'm actually not sure if it is gender segregated or there's just no women in there in terms of actually playing, because they're just not as good.
Marshall wins it. Wood. Gresham gets his kick despite the heat. McGovern is like the Rock of Gibraltar. Yo. Towards the boundary line. Sheed.
Yeah, kick's on there. Missed the gaff.
They're a big chance here. The Saints
hey.
all the answers.
Well, Saints been doing their thing over here. They got the 42-point lead.
He's hit up the lead. It's a dominant display. Marshall.
Keep it going.
They're hungry for more. King. Will he
into the 50.
or go himself?
Can they get the mark? No, handball's away.
Manages to get up a handball.
And kicks.
Into the middle with the kick. Marshall wins it back. Great mark.
And that's it. That is half time. Okay, so we will be back. We will be back with the second half. It will be St Kilda coming in with a 42-point lead. Okay, we come into the second half here. West Coast got quite a bit of work to do. They're coming back into this game, but it is possible. I suppose it's possible. You always got to think of it like this. If one team can beat another one by 40 points in one half, the other team can do it right back. But Saints are kind of like, coming in here, there.
Continue to do as they wish. Duggan tries to
I will get to the comments that you said there. I just have to do a little bit here. Little kicks. Oh, there, goal. Yay. You're saying that this world is crazy. People actually think it's fine for a man to be beating a woman in the UFC. And you're saying, but you weren't asking what the organization thinks. You were asking me in particular, what do I think is fair for a man to join a women's sport that requires physical strength like UFC basketball or swimming. Oh, crap. Wait, hold on. Pause. Okay. We're back here. So, the reason I had to pause that YouTube and stuff is it seems as though stream has been actually lagging a bit. Apparently I don't know if it was apparently since I started AFL I hadn't noticed it. I only just noticed it then. So we're gonna play through this game at least the way things are, and if things are lagging, hopefully that doesn't cause a problem for the YouTube recording itself. But we'll just see. We'll just go through what we got here. And hopefully it can be okay. And if it's a problem for stream at least, then after this game, one thing I could do is I could stop the stream, come back up after this game. I could try that, or we just keep playing it out. Right now, it's going okay. I can see, but I don't know exactly what the effect was ultimately. As for what was being saying,
that's a waste.
World is crazy. Okay, I kind of have to get myself back in. I was ready to get into it, and then seeing the stream lagging. Okay. You were asking what the organization thinks. You were asking me in particular. I knew you were asking my opinion in particular, but I also when it comes to a topic like that, want to be able to just look at why people would be doing it and be looking at different options rather than just being this is my thing, and then just that, because I don't know how much that does. I don't want to just be an opinion based. I don't want to just be opinion. I want to be able to be okay, here's why. This is what the different opinions can be. Ideally, that's what I want.
Taking no chances.
Danger averted. Frantic defense.
That requires physical. You were asking, do I think it's fair for a man to join women's sports that require physical strength? Well, it kind of comes to okay, well, is it fair for a woman to join a man's thing that requires physical strength? You know, because if you look at it and be okay, the stream is lagging now. Damn. Hopefully that's definitely not great.
Present any problems.
Kind of sucks. I don't know exactly what to do about that. I was hoping that wouldn't be too much of a problem, but it definitely going to be. Okay, just curious. When it comes to the stream lagging, has it been going on the whole AFL game, or is it something that started recently?
Gresham making his claim for the Golden Fist Award.
I don't know that. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Ginby, Cripps, throws it on the boot. Howard, the Saints under great pressure. Billings in heavy traffic.
Okay.
Navigated the traffic.
Yikes.
Kelly, he's stopped in his tracks. Cripps takes the hand.
Oh, please get rid of that.
That could be a goal-saving tackle. Ginby, Allen commands the footy.
Already got one today.
Good-looking kick. That'll.
Okay, so it was going off. I did see it was going off. It seems to be I see a green light, which is telling me that the frames aren't dropping. Hopefully, maybe we just have to try and get through this. Since I stopped playing Alan Wake, it started buffering. Okay, I think I know what that would be then. Okay, that kind of sucks, but I guess I know what that is, because I've been trying to upload Alan Wake at the same time on YouTube, and I guess it's not working today. The stream, because I thought when I started it, the reason I thought it would be okay was that it wasn't immediately screwing up for a little bit as I was setting this game up. But I guess maybe it's actually being a problem. So That's unfortunate. And it's like I don't want to like stop that recording. I don't want to like.
Thinking and good execution too.
The Saints are keen to make the absolute most of this, and why not?
Like I don't really want to like stop it either because it's actually like a decent way through it. It's actually very deep into it.
The Eagles will want to put the tape and the stat sheet.
But I can just tell that once we hit the third quarter, I'll take a mini break at that point to see how things are. But as for like the men and women's sports stuff, it's like, well, is it fair for a trans man to compete in men's sports, right? Because there would be a physical disadvantage. So it's like, are we saying like it's okay there? We're not saying it's okay in other places. Like I think go over here. Like are we only looking to punish the trans people that are winning, or are we like taking trans people out altogether? Saying just that question first, and I'll answer you on would it be fair or not on a woman joining men's sports. Like, right, you're saying that's like it's a woman and a man, and you're looking at it by saying, because there's more into it rather than just saying, oh, is it fair? Because you have to go, well, what is a woman? What is a man? You know, and then by saying, is it okay for them to join together and compete against each other? And it's like, well, if you have a sporting event and say that it's okay, like it's open to anyone of any identity or anything, then it's like, okay, it's okay for anyone of any identity. Like if you say it's like a gender neutral event, it's like, okay, it's a gender neutral event or a gender neutral league of anything. It's like, okay, like everyone within that is competing, right? There's interest from the people who are starting it. There's interest from the people wanting to compete in it. Like I don't really see a problem with that. Where the problem comes in terms of like trans versus non-trans and it being based on trans comes from if it's based on a physical advantage, I don't see like the physical advantage argument really holding up in the sense that that there would always be a physical advantage, even if it's just women on women in terms of like biological, like female versus female. There's always going to be some type of advantage for people.
Is so strong one-on-one.
It's a big margin, and it should get at least 6 points bigger.
So speaking on women's UFC, do you think it's fair if a man and beating a woman is fair?
It's online.
The way that it would be fair is if the UFC says
they're putting on a clinic.
They want to do it.
Had an answer for him.
If there are people who want to do it, and there are people who want to watch it. You know, the way that would be fair is that the people who are getting into it know what they're getting into, right?
It's worth his weight in gold. Can he impose himself on the match? Hearn feeds it out. Dangerous place to turn it over. Heads for full forward. King gets to the front spot.
They're still hungry, even with the game put to bed. That's a sign of
trying to get through this quarter as quick as I can. There you go. I can see my Alan Wake thing, like, it's definitely been a problem, but it is almost uploaded and it'll have its processing thing, so hopefully I'll make sure that while Yakuza's going, that I'm not doing that again with the AFL, at least. Because it's turned out to not be a good thing, so hopefully at least recording-wise it's not going to cause a problem, and it's just a stream problem.
Ignoring the corridor.
Hopefully, that might be something I have to check if I do.
Can he force his way through? It's hard to find a winner for them today. Quality delivery by foot. The Eagles might need plan B soon.
Handball this way, please.
Up there kicking. Billings, Hill.
Get rid of this.
Pressure. Pattern.
Thank you. But as for like the fairness of like competing in sports against each other. You said they should have a transgender sport. Why put men in sport with women? That's obviously going to win.
Where the help was. Ross, he's had little impact.
The reason it happens because, like, yes, I see what you're saying in terms of, oh, they are men. But the reason they go in there is because people are looking at them and saying, you're a woman. Like, that's the whole reason. Like, there's not a... If they went around saying that they were men, they wouldn't be let into it because of the way that people are identifying men and women.
He might have thought about the corridor.
Get rid of this one.
Might be warranted after that.
Like, if I was running an organization, would I want that? It's like, dude, I don't know what I would want. Would I want a gender-neutral fighting at all times? It's like, you can look at that and be like, I mean, the person who was the man, who was the male, is gonna, like, win almost all the time, right? It's like, is there enough interest in wanting to have that? Is there enough interest of people wanting to compete in that and people wanting to watch it to allow it to continue? Just like anything else in the world rather than a physical thing. Because it's like, why should there be a specific, why should there be an exception for a type of person to have their own league and have their own fights when if they were fighting against other people they wouldn't, they would otherwise be disadvantaged.
The Eagles might be able to start something.
Like, why is it just based on like physical competition? Why is it not just everything else of just segregating the stuff? Oh, okay.
Credit to those home fans who are still here.
Okay, we got one more quarter. I'll be back in a moment. Okay then, final quarter begins. You're saying it don't matter what people think they are, it only matters what they actually are. You think you'd be Superman all day long, it doesn't matter if you'll be able to fly. Trans people should compete against trans people.
Under pressure. That's unusual. He'll feel that one.
Like, if there are people who want to, like, create something that it's transgender only, it's like, oh, well then there would be a market for that, right? If there are people who just want to do trans only stuff.
We didn't expect this today.
Because, like, why is the whole talk about, like, the segregation, the gender segregation between physical sports, why is it just like a physical sport thing? And it's just been like, oh, it should only be segregated because the men will always win, right? Like, that's the reason. It's just been like, we want women to be able to have a professional thing where they can be the winners. It's like, why? You know, if you were to actually, like, treat people equally based on it, like, would they ever get in?
Read that one right off the boot. They'll bide their time. Outbodies his opponent.
Go over this way. It's like people are actively spending money and advertising on a sporting stuff for people who, if you were to put them against the entire public, they wouldn't be good enough.
What can he do with it? Long. Not a lot of space to work with.
Saying men can't be equal to a woman.
Higgins, they're bloodthirsty today. Marshall, that sloppy play. He'll be
like, okay.
In the morning. Owens, solid.
Get rid of this one, please.
He shoots at goal.
Like, why is it just a physical sport thing? Should you just go to like a general business and be like, okay, we're gonna go look at like everyone's IQs and be like, this is your IQ, this is your IQ, this is for like we're gonna make it this one's for this one, this one's for that one. Sure, that probably like happens. I'm sure somewhere. It's like, why is that just a physical ability thing?
They're still cracking in hard, deep into this match. Marshall showing his skills. Gresham got the handball away.
Come on, here you go. Okay, that's a Saints.
Fighting tooth and nail not to give up a goal. He's got support. Barris.
Please get rid of this one.
Under great pressure. He's set upon.
You're saying because it's not fair for born women. So you're saying it's not fair for born women to have to compete against men in something.
Runs onto it.
So you're saying that the women themselves should actually be given special treatment to be able to have their own organization in which it's only women only because they can't compete against the men.
And they're away. Sheed. He hasn't been himself today. They've opened them up here. The Saints guarding the corridor. Sinclair couldn't quite. The kick was ill-directed. Bad error there.
It's like you can have it. Like people can make them, and they do. They make the women only physical stuff. But like ultimately, that is saying that the reason that it should be created is because they're women, and not because creating that section of people because go over here because they'd be able to compete in general.
He's wrapped up. Waterman. Greg Williams would have been.
It's like if you were to just look at it and be like, well, instead of it being women, it was just people. Like why? Go over here. Get rid of this.
They're a delight to watch.
Like with all the monies and stuff that happens, and I'm not saying this should happen. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I've never even really said that at any point. I don't think. Like why are people spending so much money to fund a women's event when you could spend that much money for men who would be better at competing in those stuff, you know? Why not pop those ones up? Why should there be special treatment towards a certain class of people just because of the way that they were born?
His field kicking is normally further.
Like, is it fair to the men who aren't as good as the top men that there's women who aren't as good as them that get all the funding because they're women? Saying women can be training their whole life to compete against other women, and now they're going against men that's fucked up. Like, there are men who compete all their lives. There are women who compete all their lives. Right? I don't think he meant to smother it. But the women's, like the women's people, can not be as good as like the 100 ranked men who would never be able to. So they get more money at the end of it because they were women competing against women, and that man who is so much better than them can't earn as much money as them potentially. Right? Because he just wasn't anywhere near good enough within the men. Is it fair to those men that those women are able to get more money because they were allowed to compete in a section that was for people that from a physical standpoint weren't as good as him? Is it fair to those men?
The Eagles have only got two problems. They're not.
You're saying it is fair?
And they're not using
Why?
it well when they do.
Marshall had his measure today. Ross cops some unwanted attention. Met solidly. Cully.
Like, why should women just get their own league?
Cannot keep him quiet.
You're saying if you suck, you suck. Well,
what's he got on offer?
I'm interested that. Weird that was good in the sex time. Weird.
It's been a tough day, but that was a more positive passage of play.
You're saying if you suck, you suck. So you're saying it's fair for the men that he doesn't get as much money, and you're basing that on the fact that he's competing against men. But what I'm saying is that because it's that. Why not start a secondary league for men, for the men who aren't at the top to be able to make it there? Because if they are better, right? Like Serena and Venus Williams faced off against what? Like the 204th ranked man, right? That was the thing, and they lost. But then they're able to compete against women and make all the money they get because they're the top of the section that they're playing in, right? And all this money is given to them. You're saying just not good enough. But like, if you would put Serena Williams against the men, she wouldn't have been good enough. She wouldn't have made all the money that she made. Like, why is it fair to the men that would be able to beat Serena Williams, that Serena Williams was able to be in what she was in, to be able to make all the money she did, and they don't get to make all that money? You know? Despite the fact that they were actually physically better than that. Why is it? That isn't a man and woman thing. Saying get better, there's always room to improve.
Has found some space. Hill. The Saints.
You're saying that the way you're talking about it is you're looking at it as just man and woman. I'm just saying people. But why is it fair for a class of people to earn less money than people that they are better than because they weren't allowed to, because those other people were allowed to compete in an environment that allowed them to do that?
With anybody in this form, they're playing with great.
Like doing like this. Say you have first, second, and third class. Why is it fair to the second class that the third class is able to compete against themselves and be able to make the money the third class makes,
Quicker than that.
but the second class people have to make less because they're only allowed to compete against the first and the second class. Same because a man is not a woman. And I'm just saying from a physical standpoint, within like a tennis or anything, if the first class is the top men and the second class is the next best men who can't get on top of it, why is it fair to the second class? And this isn't about it being men and women, which seems to be all you're basing it on. Why is it fair to the second class that this third class is able to just compete against themselves? And it might not even be the third class, it might even be lower than that.
I think he called for that. Cripps can run, and that's a great hand pass.
So the second class gets fucked because the first class are competing against the first and the second, but the third class gets more than what they otherwise should be getting if they were competing against everyone, because it was given to them that they got a whole, they were just allowed to compete against the third class.
Just waiting for the right moment to press go. Wanganeen Malira loves the hard stuff.
Saying that's like saying is it fair for a woman to give birth to a baby and not a man because she is woman simple? What's it have to do with physical stuff?
No one wanted it. Marshall, Kelly, Wanganeen Malira, one step ahead. Sinclair, they've coughed it up. This
Get rid of
is
this.
great pressure footy.
Get the kick down there.
He goes. Owens is the target, and he marks.
He hasn't looked like missing so far, so I'll back him in
See
here.
if he gets this.
Looks good. He's steered it through.
Like, how is that like saying why is it fair for a woman to give birth to a baby and not a man because she is a woman? Like, I'm not sure what exactly you're getting at there.
Owens, they've given it back.
Saying women is not made the same as a man is. Like, okay, like the way you're looking at it is just based on your personal definition of man and woman, right? The way that you view men and women. And you can be like, no, that is the way that it's made because that's how it was. It's like, the way that the traditional view of men and women is literally made up. It's like people looked at different things and said, let's use this thing and that thing and that thing and call that a man, or call that a woman, call that a boy or a girl. Like, yes, like this might sound crazy to you, but when the people who say gender is a social construct say that, they're actually fucking right. But the thing could be, is that you could look at that and say it was actually a pretty good structure. But when they say it was like a structure, that's completely correct. It's like, well, why not be like the type of jawline you have, how many ears you have.
So he'll roost it long down the line. Can't take it, gotta get rid
But then in terms of like the physical sports stuff, like, well, why not just have that for everything else in the world? And being like, it's like, oh no, it's okay for like...
Has it within range.
It's not a gimme goal, but certainly one that should be kicked.
Mr. Cripps who can get this. There you go.
It's good. He's got it.
Hold on. Say men do have a period every month. Good for them. Good for them. Oh, don't.
Get themselves a late consolation prize. Turns it over in the middle. It's a tough game. Gets his kick despite the heat.
Like, I don't really know what that has to do with whether or not men and women should compete against each other. They shouldn't be allowed to compete against each other. Like, I use the class system of like first, second, and third. If you're giving the top money to the first, but then the second most money goes to the people in the third class, like how's that fair to the people in the second class to say that they have to earn less than the third class, regardless of what type of person that is? It's like you're giving special treatment to the third class. Like, why is that fair? Okay. Damn, 5 for... Adam had $5, damn. Okay, 5 for Owens, 5 for Patton here. Mason Wood was on top with 44. It was Cully for West Coast who had 43. Okay, that's quite nice. You see the tops of the marks here. Mitch Owens. Top tacklers. Okay, so St. Kilda got the win. It was Patton and Owens having 5 apiece. Mason Wood led the way with 44, and they defeat the West Coast Eagles 126 to 57. That is a 69-point victory. Nice.